I'd like to add to that as well, because I think there's something relevant for our discussion. The weight that Cranmer actually does put in that homily on justification, or what the original title, on the salvation of all mankind.
Right.
So he articulates it throughout the beginning of the homily, and then he gets onto this bit on who they are that impugn the doctrine of faith alone justifieth. So he says, "This whosoever denieth is not to be counted for a true Christian man, nor for a setter forth of Christ's glory, but for an adversary of Christ and his gospel, and for a setter forth of man's vainglory." So I think in our formularies it is put forth quite decisively. Like, look, this is a tier one issue. This is the gospel at stake on this, and that's more or less the approach from the reformers writ large. It's more or less the main, or one of the main reasons why the Reformation occurred to begin with, on top of the issue of like authority and to an extent at the start the will of man and all that, when Erasmus took that big L eventually. But thankfully, thankfully or whatever, it just is the case. It is taken as a tier one issue with these formularies, and so if we're gonna, I believe, if we're gonna be claiming to be at fundamental adherence with the formularies, not necessarily like every single little detail, because like, look, they're fallible documents. I've heard maybe there's one or two little inconsistencies between the formularies on such and such, or other minutia, but this does treat it as a gospel issue, and so I think as Anglicans we do need to treat it as the gospel at stake.
I agree. Yeah. I think if you go from a educated, knowing, reformed or Protestant understanding of justification, and you knowingly move into what the Council of Trent teaches, and you haven't misunderstood anything. You understood the Protestant view, and you've understood the Trent view, and you've decided to reject the Protestant view and embrace the Trent view. I think that you're in grave and serious danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that you have rejected the gospel.
Yeah, that might be a disagreement
Maybe not the whole gospel,
point for me.
but a big part of the gospel.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
might be
Joe?
I was just going to say that might be a disagreement for me, and mainly from the standpoint that, again, and this is what you weren't present for this, River, but on Twitter I had posted, and this is what got me and Paul initially talking about it. I had basically posted and said that justification is not a first tier issue. A very kind of strong, inflammatory statement.
Very.
But the reason that I would say it's not a first tier issue, at least anymore, is because if you go and you ask a Roman Catholic, a well-informed Roman Catholic, a well-informed Eastern Orthodox guy, a well-informed Protestant, what the basis of justification is, they're all going to say the basis, the meritorious cause of justification is the finished work of Christ alone, period, end of story. And so to me, the debate is not over what is the basis of our justification. The debate is over how is our justification applied to us and worked out. And I would agree with you guys that declaring that our works are part of how that works itself out is wrong. I don't think that our works are tied to our justification in the way that Rome and the East would say. But they would still acknowledge that any of those justifying works we do are ultimately rooted in the finished work of Christ and can't be done apart from Christ, and would point to this kind of idea that that Augustine brings up, where God is ultimately crowning his own achievement. I don't think any well-informed Roman Catholic or Orthodox would deny that. And so my problem with saying that to move into a Trent view is a denial, fundamental denial of the gospel, is that for me, if I'm going to say somebody has fundamentally denied the gospel, that person needs to deny Christ as the basis of justification, of sanctification, of salvation. And as long as Christ is the basis, I don't think you've denied the gospel. Yes, you might be in error. You might even be in serious error, but I don't think I can go as far to say that it's a denial of the gospel.